Welcome back to season 2 of The Cayman Life, where we explore why the Cayman Islands is the best place to live, work, and play anywhere in the world. I am particularly excited to be joined by Julia Dougall Harvey, who is one of the world's biggest global music managers for some of the biggest artists, and I'm sure you will leave feeling inspired and engaged. So, without further ado, Jules, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Well, thank you for taking time out of your day. I know you are an incredibly busy woman managing some of the biggest names in the world. Yeah. But I have to say, before we dive into this, I had a little bit of resentment before I knew you. Obviously, now I know you. You're lovely and charming. But the property that you ended up buying, your family home, I also had a buyer that bidded on that, and we weren't working together at the time.
I remember.
Yeah, and my client ended up losing out to you guys. So that caused me a lot of pain and a few sleepless nights.
I remember pulling up and seeing you guys, and I was like, should we circle? Should we circle? Competition's not good. You don't want them to think there's someone on their heels.
No, I know. Like, you never want any competition when buying a property. No. And that was at a time when the market was actually very buoyant and multiple offers were not uncommon.
I know.
But no, congrats on you for
Luckily, my sister
house.
said, this is it. Full price, go.
Yeah.
But what sealed it for us, I don't even know if you know this, but you know there's a Dougall door?
No, on that house?
On that house?
No, I didn't.
So my family's business is Dougall windows and doors and flooring, right? Dougall's. And in Jamaica, and they make amazing stuff. And James Lagan, who did that house, he had built, Oceana, and they had used Dougall doors and various other things, right? And that one got slightly damaged in the commute, in the move over.
Okay, yeah.
And so he painted it and put it on. And I remember I was like, is this a Dougall door? And I asked, and they were like, yeah. And he's like, a damaged Dougall door is better than any door you can find.
And that's your family's
true. That's my dad and my two brothers' business. So I was like, this is a sign. Like, it has a Dougall door on the house.
Yeah, okay.
And they're not a ton in Cayman.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But back to your comment, like, you had your sister in your corner saying, this house works for you, full price, don't mess around. And it's very easy for me as a real estate agent to say, listen, guys, everyone wants to buy a house at the lowest price possible.
Sure.
But particularly when there's competition, and if it ticks 9 out of 10 boxes, put in full price. Don't, deviate, and don't think about it, because the sense of loss that you will feel if you didn't get that and you didn't go up an extra 10, 20, 50K is going to be more resentful than if, saving a bit of money.
That's that happened to us to some degree recently with another house that we wanted to buy. And I don't know, maybe we moved a bit too slow on getting some, like there, I don't know if it was fair on both ends, but there was, in the end, if you really want something, you hit yourself and you're like, man, whatever it takes, the last little things.
That's it.
Whether it's moving faster, whether it's paying a touch more, it's like, depends on how much you want it.
That's it. If you want something, you've just got to, decide that and go for it.
The price is worth it,
Because, and I see so many buyers that just sit on the sideline, don't make offers. They're out viewing open houses all the time. But actually, the sense of satisfaction when you secure a property and you move in, you're like, that was worth everything.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
Okay. Nice. Well, I'm very glad that you did end up getting the property.
Thank you.
Tell me, you grew up on a small island, bigger than this, but how did you end up on this tiny little island in the middle of nowhere?
Yeah, well, life is random, right? So I would have never thought I'd be living here. But so the short version is my sister is married to a Caymanian, right? So she's been here for, 13 years or something. We're born and raised in Jamaica. And so she had been living here. I had gone on a whole different journey. I lived in Atlanta, then in LA for over 10 years, and then Miami for a couple of years. And I came to visit her in 2016, and I met my now husband, who is also Jamaican, but has been living here since he was very young. He's his dad is pretty famous on Island Guy Harvey. And I think a big reason they moved here, or really I think the only reason they moved here, is because Guy used to travel a lot when his wife and kids, they had a young family, and he liked the safety of it, is the truth. As amazing as Jamaica is, he really wanted somewhere that, he was on the road all the time traveling because his business is a lot in America. And so he moved them here when, like, my husband was 8. you know?
Okay.
And so born in Jamaica, but raised here. And so I met him when I came to visit my sister. And then why we ended up moving here is we had just had our first baby right before COVID. And clearly by that June, I was like, COVID's not going anywhere. And we had planned to move here at some point. You know, once we got together, we thought it was a nice place. It's, you know, there are direct flights everywhere. My you know, main client now is 45 minutes away in Jamaica. And, you know, I'm born and raised in the Caribbean and just feel maybe biasly that there's no better place to raise children. And so as much as my career had been in America, I had always kind of dreamed of coming back to the Caribbean.
Yeah, okay, nice.
Yeah.
And we'll come on to your big client in a second.
Yeah, sure.
But the safety aspect of this island is a topic that keeps coming up over and over again. And I think certainly when I talk to clients about they're maybe considering moving here from North America, Europe, and they don't know Cayman from any of the other Caribbean islands. They all have sunshine, they all have beautiful beaches. But one thing here definitely offers is safety, education, and healthcare. And 100%. I think they're absolutely paramount, particularly 100%. For anyone looking to raise a family. 100%.
Yeah. It's a lovely lifestyle. I mean, you know, growing up in the Caribbean, I mean, you're just so fortunate. Like, you have the beach, it's a small community. I like the fact that, like, I had never met my husband before. And when I met him, I mean, his parents had gone to my mother's 40th birthday party. There's connections, you know, like, you get to know people, you get to grow up with people. I like small communities for kids. And then in general, just as you say, like the safety, the fact that there's great education. You don't have to like send your kids away when they're really young because it's not good education, you know, to boarding school and stuff if you don't want to. So it's very good.
One of the biggest things that intrigued me the first time I spoke to you and met you in person is the accent. Like we have to tell the listeners or the viewers, and anyone that's listening to this but not viewing. I'd never met a white Jamaican before moving to the island, and it is just it's something just completely mind blowing. But I guess it's something that it's very familiar with. It's
but I'm used to people finding it, what you know, and I'm like. They're like, are you Irish?
Yeah, where are you from?
Everybody's trying to.
Scotland?
I get Ireland a lot and different places, but I'm like, okay, close your eyes, try again. Because it's true, it is not as normal. But it's fun to be different.
And that's it. I think the island is such a melting pot for different cultures and nationalities and accents. And that's why I think some of the kids growing up here have sort of really indescribable accents because it's sort of slightly American, Caymanian, slightly Jamaican.
Slightly British.
Slightly British
like
as
my
well.
Niece, one of my sister's oldest daughter, like for a while she was like sounding British. I'm like, hang on a second. Like, but it's so cool. They're just meeting so many different people and, you know.
From all walks of life. No, I think it's fantastic. Okay, let's dive into it. How did you end up managing one of the biggest artists in the world, Sean Paul?
Right. Well, very luckily.
I'm sure there was a lot of hard work that took to that.
Definitely. So at that point, when I started with Sean, first of all, I've known Sean since I was very young, right? You know, he and all of myself and my other 3 siblings, we all went to the same prep school. And I mean, we've known him forever, right? But then I went on my own journey. You know, Sean was massive. I'm, younger and whatever. So I went to LA and I had been working there for a long time. And, I was really heavily into the songwriter and producer business. So my guys, wrote and produced massive urban pop records, etc. And then I was also doing a lot in branding. So I've worked a lot with Pepsi and, these types of companies. And then around that time in 2015, I just started to kind of feel like the thing with songwriting and producing is you make these amazing songs and it is incredible. Don't get me wrong, but you don't have control past the song. So I might think something's a hit, but I send it on to a label or a publisher and then the song can just stop. Right. And I started to kind of want more control over the future of those records, because in the end of the day, I love music. I love songs, I love songwriters, and Sean's a songwriter. So we reconnected in 2015. He was in LA and I was living there, and at the time he wasn't with with a label, and he had recently left his last manager, and his brother and his longtime road manager had taken over management. And it just worked. We just started talking. I don't think he realized all that I was doing and being in LA. And I just, you know, myself and Jason and Steve, we got along really well. And it just, you know, started to roll and just started to happen. And the first record we had together was a really big one, was Sia, which is
huge.
Cheap, Cheap Thrills. Yeah. And that became, you know, #1 in America. That became 1 or 2 in most territories in the world. It was a #1 most Shazam song that year, globally. And then later that year, we went on and we did Rockabye with Clean Bandit, which again, like, broke records. And then at the very end of that year, we did No Lie with Dua Lipa, who obviously went on. So we just started, and we just, you know, it's been almost 8 years I've been managing him now.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And then obviously, you know, Steve and Jason as well, you know.
Yeah, okay. Nice.
So it's been amazing, and it was just like a whole new world and super exciting. And I just love business, you know what I mean? Like, I love the creative, but I also love business. I like building things. So it was, you know, Sean is obviously Sean Paul, you know what I mean? Like, he never stops. And I just loved, Sean is the hardest worker. And I just love that, like, there's always something more to do with him because he works in so many different genres. And his voice is timeless, and he is timeless. And he's so loved by artists of all stages and levels and ages. And it just makes for always a new exciting thing to do, which is what excites me every day, you know.
And that's it. And I'm just going to move this out of the way because I don't know.
Yeah, it's probably, I'm not even looking at it.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I think that's it. From my perspective, hearing you as a, you know, manager for Sean Paul is a very exciting sort of world.
Sure.
Is it, and you must be rubbing, you know, elbows with all sorts of characters. Is it sort of all it's cracked up to be? What's the scoop?
It 100% is. I mean, I would be lying if I said it wasn't. I'm not lucky to be in it, you know. I've obviously worked very hard, but you know, it's definitely, you know, one of the more exciting careers. But, you know, you get to go, you have access to concerts and sporting events and, you know, meeting lots of people and, you know, being involved in, like, massive conversations and deals. And, you know, it's a view into the world most don't get to see, which is amazing. But it's still business.
Yeah.
It's a lot of pressure. It's 24/7. The stakes are high. You're only as good as the last thing you did. It's difficult, you know?
Yes, and how do you sort of manage that pressure?
I just keep going.
Just keep going. Just put your head down and just keep going.
One foot in front of the next, you know?
Yeah, okay. Nice.
Yeah.
No, I love that.
Yeah.
So when, you know, I asked you to be on the show, I was give you a quick Google and trying to find bits and pieces about you. It seems like you make a very conscious effort to stay out of the spotlight. Is that conscious or not necessarily?
It's pretty conscious. Yeah.
Okay.
Correctly or incorrectly, you know, I get a lot of flack for it. People are like, why aren't you doing more things? And I'm trying to be a little more open now, which is why when you wrote, I said, sure.
Yeah.
But I always have, I don't know, I've always kind of shied away to leave the attention to the clients, you know,
absolutely.
and I do think that is good in certain ways, but I also think it is important to, you know, have, I probably could have a better balance, you know?
And I guess, have your own brand, because I think there's a lot of, and one thing I'm hoping from this podcast is that some connections, certainly locally, maybe even globally, will come out of this.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah.
So you moved to Cayman for family reasons predominantly, which, you know, is a big driver for location for a lot of us. Was there any strategic advantage to it for work-wise?
Well, I mean, obviously the tax.
Yeah,
you know,
huge saving.
Who's not trying to save on income tax? I do think that separate to the actual potential savings, it is so relaxing just not having to deal day to day. You know, it's quarter. This is due and that's due, and you know this. You know, just the day to day stress of dealing with America, which is where I was, and taxes is just exhausting, you know, and takes so much time away from working, to be honest, you know. So that is amazing. You know, Sean is 45 minutes away from me, so I think maybe they serve one drink on the plane because it's so quick.
Okay.
So, so that is great. You know, in LA it was a lot further.
And I think, sorry to interject, that's one of the reasons that makes the island so attractive. Is geographically we are an hour and a half to Miami.
100%.
New York is a 4-hour, 5-hour flight. Toronto, London is 10 hours, which in the grand scheme of things, you can get there in a day.
10 hours from most places.
Yeah, exactly. And then LA, there are now direct flights to
100%.
LA. So I think the island, which, if you look at it 50 years ago, was really a speck in the middle of nowhere, pre-internet, like it was
so easy.
Yeah, a difficult place. Whereas now, and year on year, it's getting more and more comfortable and easier 100%. To live.
100%. I find it extremely easy. I mean, I travel a lot now that COVID has, I don't want to say it's gone, but behind us.
Yeah.
The day-to-day thoughts of COVID. And I mean, this year I've traveled a ton, and it's not a big deal at all. I've gone to New York multiple times. I've gone to Washington. I've gone to South and North Carolina. We've gone to Miami multiple times, LA, etc. It's easy.
And I think the world is
I have direct flights everywhere.
Yeah, the world is so small these days.
Yeah.
And the conversations that I have with clients that are looking to move here say, is the island not just too small? Do you not get island fever? And that's it, you travel. You get off either through work or vacation.
Correct.
Which
I want to stay here. I'm exhausted by traveling.
Well, yeah, and that's one thing I will say is that coming back here and landing, you're like, okay, it's good to be home.
People are like, where are you going for this long weekend? I'm like, absolutely nowhere. I want to sleep.
I might go down to 7 Mile Beach from South Sound.
Maybe, and that might just be too far. The 4-minute drive.
I love that.
No, yeah.
Talk to me about being a female music manager in the industry. Is it, I don't know a huge amount about it, is it predominantly male dominated?
Yes.
And I assume it's very competitive. How has that been for you?
As a woman?
Yeah.
More so?
In the industry.
Yeah. So it's a layered question. I would say that definitely it's a boys' club. Mm-hmm. And I would say that's in a lot of businesses, really. I always kind of took the approach of not overthinking it. I'm a woman. What am I going to do about it, right?
Yeah.
In a way, there's great things about being different. And I tried to look at it in a positive way, and what made me different, They used to call me Jamaican Jules. Perfect. All right, so now I'm Jamaican, so I'm different than the rest of you,
That.
White Jules, white Jamaican, perfect. Whatever makes you different, it makes you stand out and be memorable and stuff. But obviously, there's the... sometimes you just have to kind of take it on the chin, I mean, a man is tough and no one thinks of it. A woman's tough and, they have other comments. And I'm tough in business, because I have to be. I'm competing with the rest of them. But I also think that as a woman, sometimes you have a certain empathy, which clients like and other people like. Sometimes you have a certain softness. They say, don't be emotional, I think. And I say to people all the time, I'm like, look, of course you need to keep level-headed, but I do get emotional about things because it's my life. I spend more time working than I do anything else, And when I say emotional, I mean, sometimes things do take it personally, and I don't, and I get upset about something, or I'm very defensive about a client, like to make sure I'm protecting them, etc. And it's like, I don't really know what's wrong with that. So,
and I see that you're a very strong character and individual, and I think it's true in any business. You have to be, irrespective of whether you're, male, female. It doesn't matter. Yeah.
I think that the one thing that is a challenge, and I don't know about the rest of all other businesses, but as I say, it's mainly boys, mainly men, I should say, in the music business. There's definitely women, but the majority of the bosses, right? And now women are rising definitely more and more, and there's some amazing women at heads of labels and publishing companies, etc. But I would say that they get together on holidays with their wives. They sit down and watch basketball games. They're not necessarily inviting their girlfriends over with their wives at the house. You know what I mean? And it's just, and it's not because there's anything wrong with it, but it's just more natural that they're going to shoot it with the boys, you know what I mean? So you build friendships, but there's a bit of a boys club,
Yeah, and coming back to what...
fine,
Yeah, exactly, and that's it. We are different, characters. We have different strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
To what you said about, females generally being more empathetic.
Sure.
And it just dawned on me as you said it, we have 80% of our agents in the office are female.
There you
and
go.
There's probably, it's not a coincidence that generally sort of listen better and more empathetic.
Yeah.
Because that's what, real estate is a lot, just listening to people and finding out what they really want in a property.
And I would say clients differ, some clients, I don't want to say old school like it's bad, but some clients are like, nope, I want the powerful man. Perfect. Then have that, you know, like, and some clients look at it very differently. Fabulous. So there's space for everybody, you
That's
know?
it. And I think like attracts like. Birds of a feather flock together.
Yeah.
And so you will, if you are yourself and you're authentic, you will attract like-minded people towards you.
And I also think men and women, the right pairings, complement each other very beautifully in a partnership.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
Bring very different qualities to the relationship.
Yeah, so I've never overthought it or worried too much about it.
Nice, okay. You mentioned, and I know we've chatted in the past, sort of, and I now have a 1-year-old.
Yeah.
How is it juggling all of this with 2 kids, family life? Any specific challenges with your kind of work?
I mean, it's hard, you know. I always say, you know, and I have a lot of very good friends, very high up in the music business, lawyers, publishers, you know, in the labels, etc. And we laugh. We're like, you know, when a woman comes into the office and says, I'm pregnant, everybody's like, oh, good. But in the back of their mind, they're like, how long is she going to be off, you know? A man comes in, it's like, perfect, great, you know, let's throw them a party.
High five.
So, you know, it's tough, you know. I'm a small company, so I never really stopped. You know, I mean, like I remember being in the hospital working, you know, and that's hard. But, you know, again, you just do what you do.
Yeah.
And it's a transition. It's, you know, learning, trying to figure it out, balance. I think what's amazing in the Cayman Islands and Caribbean is that you have a lot more help. You know, I have full-time help, which I could not live without. And that's very fortunate being here, you know.
Yeah. Any regrets on that as you went through that sort of transition?
You mean having so much help?
Yeah. Well, no, sorry. From not having time off and spending as much time as you'd like to with your kids over work?
Yeah, I wouldn't say regrets because I don't know that I would have had any other choice in what I do currently. But certainly, you know, and it's not just in the past. I mean, I feel that daily, you know, like my husband drops my kids to school every day, you know. I'm more the odd picker-upper, you know.
Yeah.
But, you know, I just do my best because, you know, I have a lot of load to carry.
Yeah.
As does he, but he's, you know, I don't know.
Yeah,
you know?
okay. And
so
I think,
it's tough.
Yeah, it is tough. And I think that's it. Like, whichever way you look at life, there's no easy way out.
No.
Because easy decision, hard life, easy decision. So.
And I also love my career. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel independent. You know, I like working. I wish I could do it, you know, day to day pick and choose.
Yeah, that would be nice.
But not many careers that are successful are like that.
That's it.
Know?
There's no sort of, you know, even keel balance. It's
Sure.
very much peaks and troughs.
Yeah.
Which
but I think all working women struggle, you know, in their own way, and you just, you know, do your best and try not to be too hard on yourself.
Yeah.
And keep it moving, you know.
Yeah, and that's it. Just
you know?
keep it moving, keep your head down. So long as you're conscious of it.
Yeah.
But no, good for you. That's really inspiring. So I bumped into you at the Steve Aoki concert down here recently, and I saw him. I'm a big fan of his, and I saw him 13 years ago at Tomorrowland, which is probably a conversation for another time.
Yes.
Playing in front of 50,000 plus people. And he played down here in a car park to maybe 200 people.
Yes.
And I bumped into you. I was like, how does somebody get Steve down here? And you're like, that was me. So how do you get one of the biggest global DJs in the world to play in a car park in the Cayman Islands?
So yeah, that was interesting. His manager is a very good friend of mine, Matt. And to be honest, if it weren't the Cayman Islands, he would not have come, right? Or a beautiful island, because a huge part of swaying him to come was that, you know, come and visit the Cayman Islands. He had never been here, and all that you can do. And we made sure, like my husband, you know, they went free diving, which I think he had done maybe once or twice, but not a lot. And he really wanted to do free diving again. So Coral and Jason,
I saw some photos.
you know, went and, you know, they took them. And I mean, it was a highlight. He set his record. Then they did all kind of other stuff. Like, I don't even know the names of all the different things. They did all kind of water sports. And Steve does not stop. Like the moment he lands, he does not stop moving. In that one day that you saw him perform, he had been literally working his body between free diving, scuba diving, snorkeling, this other foiling thing.
Oh, e-foiling.
E-foiling.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
And then after that, the whole team went to the
Garden Club.
Garden Club.
Yes.
And then they did ice baths. And then so everybody left. And then he went to the gym and did a whole workout. Like, the man has energy like nothing you've ever seen.
Yeah, I think you've got to operate at that level.
At that level.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable. So, but really the big catch was come and experience Cayman. So we were able to kind of, I was like, we're going to have to give him a nice vacation, you know?
Yeah. And I think that's it. The conversations, and I'm sorry, I keep bringing it back to real estate in my experience, but there's a lot of parallels. So one of the concerns people have moving here is that it's an island of, it was now like 80,000 odd people. Do you not get bored? And I find when you're here, I think the common conception is you're on the beach sipping pina coladas all day, every day. And it's far from the truth. Like, there is a thriving economy here. And in order for that to happen, there has to be work and inputs.
Of course.
And so, someone like Steve is, a prime example of that.
Yeah.
Nice. No, I love that. Well, personally, thank you for bringing him down. It was the best Thursday night I've had in a long time. How is the music scene and film scene developing on the island?
Yeah. So I definitely think there's a massive push for it. They've, as you know, they've done certain movies here already. Yeah,
there seemed like when Nicolas Cage was down, and they filmed, a load of great films. I think that a lot of the focus right now is changing to make it easier. So changing like the behind the scenes, the legislation and, different policies which need to change for film, for music, etc. But I think that it's something that the people of Cayman really want, and there's a very clear opportunity for it. So definitely, myself and other people who are here have been having a lot of conversations, even like the Cool Out event. That was bringing people from various, between tech, between music, etc., and then tax people, specialists and stuff like that, to really figure out what the opportunities are and what needs to change for the opportunities to work. Yeah. And that's very exciting. It is. Am I right in thinking that if you record a song here or produce a film, are there tax advantages for that?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. So there are some things which need to change, which is what they're working on, some certain policies, which will make it even more beneficial. And once that's in place, it's going to be hugely beneficial for people to record here.
No, that's very exciting. Yeah. I know you did a talk at that Cool Out conference that you mentioned. What sort of nuggets from that can you impart on, maybe young individuals aspiring to make it in the creative music industry?
In Cayman or in general?
Just in general.
Yeah, in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the thing with music or any sort of, creative field is just to get going. I think certain people, I'm not saying no one successful has ever come from school, but in this world, in music, for example, but I wouldn't say, go and spend a ton of money and time to go to school to be a producer. Some of the biggest, most successful ones, they just did it in their basement. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't go to any school to be a manager. You just have to have drive, you have to have taste, and you have to have, you have to look at it like there is no other option. Like, people would say to me, why do you think you can make it? You're like a little girl from Jamaica. I have no idea, because I know. And I don't have a plan B.
Yeah. No, I love that. And it's so true. And it's just taking that first step, getting the experience, getting your foot in the door. And then if you have that self-belief, it will all unfold. And
correct.
Like you said earlier, you just got to keep going every day, get up.
You got to be so crazy to think you can make it. And that's that.
Yeah. And don't let anyone stop you and get in your way.
No.
I love that. That is fantastic. And I think the island has historically been very much dominated by accounting, finance, and with those, the legal sector. Sure. And I think a lot of parents here have historically pushed their kids into those fields, which from my perspective is not the most, and I could be wrong here, but exciting of careers, but it's certainly not for everyone. So I think it's great that there are other industries and businesses setting up here, which I think just makes for a much better future for kids growing up here.
Totally. Well, this is also one of the reasons why, the different conversations which are being had now interest me, because I do have kids, and I don't want them to feel like they have to leave the country to do whatever they want to do, and I don't think, I see zero reason for that, so I think it's exciting that, between the creatives and the legal people and, the government teams, et cetera, are getting together to try to change any things which need to change so that it opens up for, you know, as you say, like more tax benefits for things, etc. You know, and makes it easier. And I think it is getting like that.
It is.
I certainly don't want my children doing something just because, you know, it makes sense.
Agreed.
You know?
And I think whilst we're still operating in the Caribbean and stuff does move slightly slower than, you know, cities, I think it is a very progressive island and also very entrepreneurial, because you've got a lot of, people that certainly move here looking for something better. They're looking for better work-life balance, or they're just not satisfied in where they are.
Sure.
And I think this island is a real melting pot for that.
Definitely.
And has a huge amount of opportunity.
And just the people you meet. I mean, the minds that you meet, which is something I used to love about LA. Sometimes people have this vision of LA that it's like, I don't know, you know, but
I've got a vision in my head. Yeah. Plastic and
by the way,
whatever.
that is a part, but it's not the part I lived in. I was so inspired by the minds that I met every day. I mean, people go to LA with dreams, and that's so exciting to me. Like, I love to have conversations with people who were just so smart and always had an idea and something to build and something new. I mean, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, it's really nice to be able to have conversations with people who are from all over the place, who, you know, have something else they're trying to build. And I mean, that's just exciting, you know, like that's life, right?
Yeah, and I certainly find here, I mean, there's, you know, with the whole advent of crypto and blockchain, et cetera, here is a huge base for that. So that's a big growing industry at the moment. But then also a lot of individuals that have made their money in finance or whatever else want to invest in more creative investments.
100%.
And I see that all the time here. And it's fantastic to see.
And also, I think especially since COVID, businesses have changed where you really can live wherever you want to live. You have to travel, of course. But I mean, pre-COVID, right? Sean at the time was signed out of the UK to Island Records, which goes through Universal out of the UK.
His first album, Dirty Rock, was one of my favorite albums. When I don't know how old I was, like 15 or 16, literally just had that on repeat. It was great.
But so I was obviously on the phone with the UK. I mean, multiple times a day, but only the phone, right? Now I almost never am on a phone call. It is only Zooms that I do. Yeah. So all of a sudden, even when I was on the phone with them all day long, and now I'm on Zooms with them all day long, you know, or if I'm talking to LA or Miami or New York, I mean, we do Zooms all day. So it's and people I'm speaking to, like I was just talking to, you know, the head of marketing at his touring company, you know, and she's in New York. She was just telling me she lives between New York and Costa Rica now.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize that. She spends half the time. She's actually planning to move there, you know, and it's like, you know, people are all over the place.
That's it.
And it's fabulous.
It's great. And I think COVID did wonders for it. You don't have to go to an office to do your work, to the 9 to 5. And I think, the island certainly promotes that. The world is getting smaller. And if you can work and live in paradise where you pay 0% income tax, you have sunshine 365 days a year, it's safe, you have great education and healthcare, why would you want to live anywhere else? That's what I tell my friends that are back home in England and London. I'm like, guys, all move out here. It's fantastic. It's not perfect, but it's, you know, as close to it as you're going to find.
So I think people should feel more free now and more empowered to do what they want to do, wherever you want to live, you know, because it is possible.
It is, very possible. And the notion of this sleepy island in the middle of the Caribbean where you sit on the beach drinking pina coladas all day is simply not true. And you're, you know, a testament to that. Well, Jules, thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
My pleasure.
It's been an absolute delight chatting to you. And I'm sure our listeners will get a lot of value from that conversation.
Great.
So thank you.
You.
All righty. Nice.
Good
job.
I hope that was okay.